I mean, so my understanding is, you kind of came out to LA and got this studio space and all this right before the pandemic started. Is that right?
Right. I mean, not before. No. I mean, we moved to LA in end of June, summer 2019.
Okay.
And we built the studio in summer 2020. So during the pandemic.
Right. Man, that's got to be, I guess you had a year in LA before the pandemic hit, but that's got to be a rough, because moving across the world to a new place, that's a big deal. And then for this to happen sort of shortly after you got there,
it was frustrating.
Things.
Oh, it was frustrating, man. And the thing is that we, like you say, we had a year here in LA, but not really, because when we moved here, it was festival season, so we were traveling a lot, and then we hit we went on tour on the end of 2019 for 2 months, and so we were not able to really enjoy LA during that time either. And when we started doing stuff here in January, February, well, like having family visit from Europe and coming here. Like we had the godfather of my son came, it was all good. And then my mother-in-law arrived, and 2 days after, boom, lockdown.
Oh, man.
So that was a bummer.
Did she get stuck, or did she have to go back?
She went back earlier than expected. And she's been lucky. Half of the flight back with the company she had were canceled. It was really hectic, but she's been able to fly back. Yeah. No, that's good, man. I don't know if you know Aptic at all, but I mean, we're not close, but yeah, we met a couple times for sure.
Yeah, well, he had the reverse of that situation. I was talking to him. He was out in Belgium visiting his family kind of right when everything started locking down, and he decided to stay there. And then he kind of got stuck out in Belgium. He's been there this whole time. And I think that's been pretty frustrating for him too.
Oh, definitely. Must have been.
Yeah.
I mean, if you want to be stuck somewhere, I guess, I mean, I don't know how many, his family is probably still in Belgium. Don't you rather spend lockdown with family?
Yeah,
because
absolutely.
I mean,
I think that's why he chose to stay out there was, because otherwise he knew he wasn't going to see them for a long time.
I mean, yeah, that's what happened with my wife here and me. We wanted to visit family in Belgium last year already, and we are hoping to see the restriction being lifted right now. Because right now they still have those 14 days restriction where you cannot enter back to the US if you went to the Schengen space within 14 days.
It's tough, man. Yeah, Europe's kind of in trouble with all that stuff right now.
Yeah. We felt like we were super late in the US, and Europe was getting was doing better, and then totally switched with the vaccine being super well distributed here. I mean, when I say super, people still say it being a mess, but at the end, the numbers are there.
Right, yeah, that's the thing, man. I mean, it was kind of a mess, but it seems like it was less of a mess than some other places.
Way less, yeah. I think they have 6% of the population in Belgium vaccinated, 6%, and there's only 11 million people out there. It's gosh.
yeah. So it's not even that many people. Yeah, It's wild, man. I don't know. And now, I mean, here everything's opening back up. I mean, I saw, you guys have shows in the fall, all that kind of, the festivals are happening, all that kind of thing.
Yeah, you saw Ooby Dooby had that festival happening last week.
Right, yeah, in Texas, it already happened.
I mean, at the end, those places, Texas and Florida, I'm not sure they even really closed.
Yeah, I don't think they really did.
But it was not throw it to the eyes of all the nation,
Right. Yeah. No, I know you can tell, man. I mean, now that those dominoes are tipping, there's no way to stop it here for good or for worse. I mean, for you, how has this last year been? Have you just been in the studio a lot? Has it been stressful? Has it been nice to take a break? What's your experience of it been?
For the first time ever, I've been able to spend a lot of time with my family, with my kid, because the project started to be big when my wife got pregnant.
Oh, wow.
In the same time. So she was getting big and the project was getting big and it was super stressful on both sides. But when so I was traveling a lot, and this year has been a blessing for me in a way, because I've spent so much time working at home on the music and seeing my family way more than I ever been able to. So that was cool on that point. But there's been ups and downs. Like, it's been a long time. So you got the motivation that's during a couple of months, and then you got a little week of when is this shit's gonna end? Of course. And
and I mean, you just put out the new album. Was a lot of that a product of the time, the pandemic time?
Most of it, for sure. But we had started that project actually right before hitting the road on the end of 2019. I love to really take my time with production. Honestly, I like to play the track a lot live, and different version of the track to see how it works and get familiar with it.
Yeah,
it just helped the whole inspiration process too. Just to see how it performed live, the sensation. And I don't like to rush things. And so we had that project of pushing the Dark Wobble sound of the project for the next release. But we had not really planned to drop an album focus on Dark Wobble at first. We thought maybe a couple of tracks, an EP, which would be a first for us because we usually only drop albums.
Right.
And the pandemic just opened that possibility of having just more time to work on it.
Do an album?
Yeah, right. and at the end, and also, of course, 70% of the album's been produced during the pandemic, I think. But I produced a lot more that is not on Dark Wobble. That was not fitting the dark vibe of it. I'm even during the pandemic, we wrote Ease Your Mind with Griz, which is the most uplifting and sunrise, whatever. It's kind of crazy to believe that it's been writing during the pandemic.
But, well, I think when you're working with Griz, it's hard to imagine that guy being too dark,
Yeah, no, definitely. That was easy. And I'm personally a happy guy too. Honestly, it was kind of challenging to put myself in a dark mind and to make dark and angry music.
Yeah. When you go to work on an album, is it usually conceptual like that? Is there usually a thought or a theme behind it that sort of informs the music you're writing?
I think it should be.
Yeah.
it should be. But for Ganja White Night, I think that's the first time really that the whole album have a theme and a concept really it's really tied. Everything's tied together like that. And the theme is really legit from you can hear it in the sound and in the visual, of course. But between the track, between them, they have that style in common, the orchestration, the dark vibe. And usually, honestly, I never focus too much into having that fusion into an album. Usually, I'm just okay, well, that's my style. I put the track that I think are good to create that album, and I'm not gonna put too much work into having that cohesion between all the track,
right,
like I did this time. So that's really the first time we've spent a lot of time on that.
Yeah, it's cool, man. Do you think, now having done it, do you think you're going to do it that way in the future?
Yeah, I kind of feel like it should be like that in a way. And also like, I think when the time is right, you do the thing you think are the best.
Yeah.
And sometimes I don't want to put too much pressure on myself and just hold those unreleased tracks on the side for too long. At some point, I'm like, okay, well, that album will have different vibes in it in a way. Like we released in 2015 or 16 Hybrid Distillery, which is like a 16 track album, and there's all the flavor in that. Like there's 3 or 4 dubstep tracks. There's some hip hop, some garage vibe track. There's a little bit of everything, and sometime I'm like, this is pretty cool too to have variety in an album and make people, especially for an album that is like 16 track long. Like when you're stuck into one vibe, the whole album might be a little bit not boring, depending on what you do, but
no, I know
variation is good.
Yeah, no, I know what you mean, man. I think sometimes a really good album is just a snapshot of whatever you were doing and thinking at that time, right? Like sometimes I don't think it has to be more complicated than that. If it's just a really good snapshot of this is who I was at this time, this is what I was thinking about, this is what I was listening to. Mm-hmm. And I think if an artist can really present like a pure version of that to put the listener in their shoes, I don't think it has to be more complicated than that. Sometimes those are the best albums. Yeah, no, definitely agree with you. And then the challenging thing is just to make it whole, cohesive with the visual you want to put for the album too. Right. Well, and I know that's a big thing for you guys. Was it always a big thing for you, or did the visual component kind of come along as the project grew?
Well, it always been like a will of make it that important into the project. But as you know, like creating animation and visual costs a lot of money.
Yeah.
And when we started, we didn't have enough to spend and invest into visual the way we're doing right now. So it always been really a will of making music videos, always wanted to tell stories with the music, always. And like when we started collaborating again with Ibo, I say again because actually he drew the first cover artwork for our first album back in 2008. And it was pretty pricey for us. I remember we kind of spent all we had on the side just to have that done.
Right.
And when we started working back with him in 2015 for a Hybrid Distillery, we were like, okay, well, we have a little bit more finance than before. Let's make that visual aspect of the project evolve,
right,
a little bit more, and obviously making music video animation by then was still had that, like we felt it would be really too pricey and not possible.
Yeah.
But after the success of Mr. Wobble, the album right after Hybrid Distillery, we're like, okay, Ibo, let's make it happen. We got this money, it's almost everything we have. Let's make a music video. Let's do it. And then he made Mr. Wobble. It's from a concept, actually, from an idea I had back in 2012, I think. Like I was writing a story of a character called Mr. Wobble that had superpowers while walking in the street, and everything he would touch would start wobbling and that kind of stuff. And I presented that to Ibo. I say, you know that movie, The Iron Giant?
Oh, yeah.
So I like those proportions, like one massive character with a small head. And then he came out with the proportion of Mr. Wobble being like a fat orange guy wearing a orange tracksuit and having a mysterious head. So, and he's really simple like that because it would be easier to animate at the end. That's why we came up with that.
And I think it's, those are the characters people can latch on to the easiest too. I mean, for anybody who's listening who might not know what we're talking about, I mean, it's kind of turned into like the avatar of Ganja White Night, right? Yeah, the mascot. I mean, I'm looking right now. You got some like plush dolls of him in the background.
Yeah. Something terrible happened there on the couch.
Uh-oh. They're just covering it up.
Yeah.
That's fair. But no, man, it's cool to see something, come from just a seed of an idea and to come that far. And what I like about the idea of, integrating characters and visuals in these themes is that then I think it gives people who like what you do these multiple layers they can dive into if they want to, right? Because I would imagine you probably have a lot of fans who just are like, I love the music, that I'm just following whatever these guys do. And then there's probably a different section of people that are into the storytelling and the visual aspect of it. And, it's creating like a whole world where people can kind of go to whichever area they prefer,
No, for sure. No, for sure. People are really connected to the art and visual. Ibo is an extremely talented artist. It always has been. He was already big in Belgium in the hip hop scene. And
talk about him for a second. I mean, how did you, especially if at the start you gave him all your money just so he would do your cover?
I was so stressed,
who was
man.
He? Oh, I bet, man.
I mean, for us, we were so impressed because he was so big. He was doing big things with names we thought were so much bigger than us.
Was he like a street artist in Belgium?
Yeah, like he was doing like graffiti, like pieces on huge walls in Brussels and in Belgium in general, and he had a following for sure. I remember back, was it in 2016? He released a sketchbook in 2016. Super cool. I'm still having my book waiting in his place, waiting to be signed to this day, like 5 years after. Ibo, if you listen to this, I won my book. But so yeah, he was big into that world, and he had no idea what dubstep and the scene in the US was at all.
Right.
So that was a big shock for him when we bring him here to see what was going on.
I bet.
That was a shocking for sure.
Well, I mean, what were you into at the time that you were aware of him? I mean, where do you come from musically? Like, did you grow up listening to electronic music? Were you listening to hip hop? What was around you when you were young?
When I was young, super young, I think my parent was listening to the radio, and maybe sometime we had some classical music. Not anything really exciting.
What was on the radio?
Random stuff, I mean, the thing I connected with, the first thing I really felt like connected with musically, and the first thing I wanted to listen in loop was Michael Jackson.
Yeah.
I was a big fan when I was a kid, like
I was
millions of other kids.
Oh yeah, me too, man. Yeah.
Of course. And but my first like personal musical journey started with rock and roll, and hard rock, and I was a big fan of Muse. I remember I really loved the musicality, his piano, his harmonies were, I was really in love with that. And then I switched to electronic music not too long after. I met Erwin, so my partner in crime, since I was 17. And we met while going to raves in Brussels, going to drum and bass, as many drum and bass parties we could. And we really fell deep into that world, the underground scene, drum and bass, breakbeats, bass line, UK garage, grime, all that. And
was that a big scene in Brussels at the time?
It was super underground. It was parties organized in parking lots, underground parking lots. I remember literally the traduction of that room was called a concrete structure.
That's great.
And many kids from where we're from. So we were from a little town in Belgium called Mons, and it's like 10,000, 15,000 people there.
Okay, yeah, so pretty small.
Yeah. And it's not that small for Belgium, actually.
Right,
but
yeah.
I mean, compared to Brussels 1 million people, so definitely. And we were meeting everybody like in the train from Mons to Brussels every weekend, just going to rave to that concrete structure béton club. And that's how we met. We started going every weekend, or as much as possible, as much as we could afford. And Erwin was already playing with Fruity Loops back then. And I don't remember exactly how it started, but we installed Fruity Loops in my computer. And we started playing with it. And I remember like the first of the second night we spent whole night playing with Fruity Loops. We decided to call the band Ganja White Night. Because the literal translation of a white night in French is called a nuit blanche, which means staying awake all night. And so we called the band Ganja White Night because we were smoking ganja, making music, staying awake the whole night.
Right.
And that's where the name comes from.
Yeah, as simple as that, man. And it just stuck.
But in my head, I always thought White Night was meaning the same thing for you guys that it means for us. I learned that years after that it had no meaning at all. And people would think we were like White Night with a K. And then I realized, oh shit.
That's really funny, man. It's kind of better that way, though. I think, names and the way people get their names, there's always it's never like a grand plan, right? And it's kind of like whatever the project ends up being, sort of that informs the name, Yeah. Like I feel like the project makes the name and not the other way around.
Yeah, that was just the description of how we were writing music.
Yeah, just very literal.
Yeah, exactly. Super literal. And for us, anything that was in English sounded super cool. So it was like, Ganja White Night. Oh, gosh, that sounds so cool.
Well, I mean, what kind of exposure culturally did you have to what was going on with dance music sort of in the global sphere? Because if it was super underground in Belgium, were you paying attention to the trends elsewhere?
Oh no, we were not thinking about anything,
Yeah.
Like when we discover, like when dubstep just came out of nowhere, we were following those style on Juno Download, which is you know that website.
Oh yeah, I used to be on there. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean it's a long time ago. Back then it was like MySpace and Juno Download. And for us, it was the best way to get like fresh new vibes, and see what was just hot and what just was released. And we remember like discovering Skream album, and that was a life-changing experience, really, for us. We felt super connected with it, and we didn't realize like if it was trendy or not. It was just all about the music. We had no big goals of nothing, like for us, it was far away from a dream that could be achieved in any ways. Like we were just making music because we were having fun, like really a passion. Yeah.
And which is, I think, the best reason to be doing it. And was there a point when that changed? Like, was there a certain moment when you realized, oh, hey, this could really be something we could keep doing? This could be something we do for work? Or did it just kind of, happen after a while?
Well, a little bit of both, honestly, because when we started producing dubstep and we started releasing our first music, we saw good results. Like we were #1 on Juno Download, which was crazy for us. And we didn't know we couldn't have like all those stats right now. They show you on every website which town is listening you the most and that kind of stuff. Like on Juno Download, you're like, okay, we're #1. Great.
Yeah.
And we realized only years after that actually we planted tons of seeds in the US. and it was a success in the US more than in Europe or in Belgium or in the UK. And that we realized years after. So yeah, like we had that little dream in the back of our head, started doing music, of course, for many years. And at some point, we started to see evolution, the numbers growing, reputations growing. We were played by other DJs sometime that had a bigger influence. We always been self-released forever.
Right. I saw that,
We always release our stuff on Subcarbon. That's why we created the label. It's just because labels were not interested into us that much. And so that was
did they ever get interested in you once you got hot and once you were
too late? Yeah. That was too late. That was too late. For us, it was like, we would have appreciated that offer a few years ago, but now, you know what?
Yep.
But
I mean, it's interesting, right? Like the idea of, you make yourself hot, which you have to do anyway, label or not. And then once you are, I think it's much harder for a label to, unless they're just giving you a bunch of money or something.
It was a long road.
Yeah, it is, man.
And it was a risky one too. And don't get me wrong, if we had the opportunity back then to release on a big, well-known label, we would have been honored, of course.
Right.
It would have been great, a great help, a great push, but we didn't have that opportunity. So, but we still wanted to release stuff, and we were believing in ourselves. So, and we kept believing for more than 10 years.
Yeah.
Before actually starting to think, okay, this is getting somewhere.
I mean, that's crazy, man, because I didn't realize until I started doing my research here how long you had been a group already. And all the albums you had put out, way at 10, starting back 10 or more years ago. And what about those early years, the lean years before it really started taking off? Did you guys, did you have side hustles? What place did it have in your life while you were still trying to build it into a sustainable thing?
Well, first off, I think when the project emerged, we were just starting school. We went to the music school to learn concrete music. Concrete, I don't know if it's the right
musique concrète?
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Electroacoustic music, So which was extremely interesting in many ways. Because at the end, it challenged yourself to make something interesting to listen to without harmonies or rhythm. Which is extremely challenging if you think about it for a second. It's how can you create emotion or making something interesting to listen to without having a melody that stick to your head or even a rhythm you can kind of move to.
Yeah, I mean, talking about it's really interesting. So I went to university for sort of a similar thing. There was definitely an experimental program that I was in, and people I had a class that Alvin Lucier taught, Pauline Oliveros came and did a speech, that kind of thing. So it was those kind of people, and it's interesting that kind of music. Because, if we talk about musique concrète, like John Cage, I think is, one of the big names. And his whole thing was that everything is music, right? Every single sound in the world. The
silence piece he made is super funny.
Is music.
It's so cool. I wish I had composed that thing. It's so funny. I love it. For the people that listen, is it 4 minutes something of silence?
And
they're imagine a full orchestra. And the director is just there turning pages of silence. Nobody plays nothing. That is experimental music.
It really is, man. But there's something beautiful about that too, because what poetic. You were saying, man, and what you were saying earlier about trying to force yourself to make something that engages people and brings you emotion without melody and without exactly rhythm and all that. It makes you think about, like, it changes the definition of what is
the
music,
fundamental.
right?
The fundamental. It made you think about the fundamental of music and how a brain of human reacts to sounds in general, and how you can kind of direct people into focusing on a specific sound. What are the tricks? Like for example, if you have something extremely repetitive, just a loop, non-stop loop, you just need to change the tiniest thing and people would notice it right away. Unless if you have a ton of different stuff happening nonstop, and then just suddenly there's a constant thing started to happen.
Yeah.
People would notice it everywhere. It's just tons of tricks like that you start to learn, and then you put that into, I'm not going to say normal music, but more easy listening music.
Yeah. I mean, it's definitely more normal.
When you are aware of that, I think it changed the way you produce.
It's really interesting, man. I mean, what were your early productions like when you and Erwan were just starting?
It was terrible. I'm gonna be honest with you, man. It was terrible.
I mean, of course it was. Everybody's terrible at the start.
Not everybody. No, I know people really good. Like a year after they start producing, they're great. It was we were having fun and just we're not taking that super seriously. I mean, we're trying our best to make good stuff, but it's.
What were you trying to make at the time?
I don't even think we had, I could classify that into a style.
Yeah.
It was just experimentation, let's say. And we were just having fun. I remember we were sampling kickflip sounds from Tony Hawk Pro Skater.
Oh, yeah.
And making beats with that. And
that's great.
It was fun, we're having fun and we're really high. And still, you gotta realize that too. and I wish that, back then we had those tools that the kids that are starting making music right now have, which is tons of YouTube video to teach them how to make sounds. And back then, you remember, it was kind of tough to find a method or tricks and help. So I guess that helped a lot. The kids are starting producing right now. There's a lot of help everywhere.
Yeah, that you're absolutely right. I mean, was there anyone, even at the very start when you guys just started doing it, was there anyone around you who was doing the same thing? Was there anyone who had anything to teach you about production, or was this really just you guys figuring it all out?
Well, we had a little group of producers in Belgium that we were meeting sometime just at parties and stuff. I remember Apache. I don't know if you heard about Apache.
Yeah.
So he's a longtime friend from Belgium. And I remember he was into hardcore electronic back then,
yeah.
But still, as soon as you knew some people that were producing electronic music, you were exchanging tips and tricks. And I remember we spent masterclass video back then were rare.
Right.
And everybody know that masterclass of Roscoe showing how he makes wobbles with albino, like that VST
that
with the
classic
red thing.
Old video, yeah.
I remember we were watching this posing, trying to zoom to see what the setting was, to say, how does he make that sound? I know many of us did that back then, for sure.
I definitely saw that video,
Now it's so much easier. to learn, not to produce, of course.
Yeah.
But that's what's cool, because it's forcing young producer now to be original. Everybody can learn the technique, can download presets and stuff like that. Now it's relying on people's ability to be creative and original. And I think that's what it's kind of fair. It's not just a knowledge. I get the privilege of having that knowledge of how to use that VST and all that. Now you got to be creative. Find the best melody you can, or experiment. I love where it's going right now.
No, I agree with you, man. I mean, I think when everybody has access to the same tools, then it's just about basically, who's going to work for it. Yeah. I completely agree. And it's interesting. I mean, thinking about your guys' sound, and talking about finding that Skream album and it sort of rewiring your brain, and you guys, really getting into the early dubstep sound, kind of right as it was emerging. I think it's interesting because at that time, your guys' music, it fit in with that sound. But then I think dubstep kind of continued and evolved, and especially in the States, it turned into something totally different, especially by now. But you guys sort of stayed consistent, and I think, I don't know if you agree with me, but listening to your catalog, it seems like the trends of it didn't touch your music as much as you just staying consistent with your vision for it. And I think that's interesting because I think that's sort of uncommon for a lot of people.
I agree with you in a way that I don't think we've been super influenced by what was hot in dubstep and tried to sound like it. I don't think, honestly, we've been influenced by that. I don't want to sound like, just make my music and all. But what I'm saying, like, just to be fairly honest, I was not able to sound like it. So I didn't even try it. I just stayed real to what I could do and be the most original with my capabilities. There's a good trick for people that sometimes it's tricky, but like, hear me out. It's always more interesting, in my opinion, to try to make something original and good with just 2 or 3 tracks, 3 sounds, than if you have like 150 tracks and you can do anything you want. It's way more challenging, and you got to search into the really good idea that you want to accomplish with just really a few tools. And I think that's what was consistent. It's just I didn't have the knowledge to sound like Skrillex. I could not. So I know how to make those sounds, and I got to make them as efficient as possible.
Right. Yeah. I do. I'm right there with you. I mean, this is something I talk about a lot on the show is, the best pop songs in the world, the most popular songs on the planet are simple songs, Yeah. Like
they talk to everybody. They have different layers. They talk to the people that just hear the first layer. It's super simple, and also have that deep, sophisticated, almost mathematic balance, which talks to the more, the people that are looking for details. But yeah, I think so. We're not being influenced by what was hot, but we've been influenced by this when we started touring. That's for sure had an impact on how we were producing music, because back then we were not really caring about having something danceable or a banger or anything like that. But when we started touring, we were like, gosh, I wish I could have more track that makes people, losing it a little bit, have a more big impact, a big boom. And so we started producing, trying to reach that kind of tracks too, but still without, I think, being too much influenced by dubstep or whatever was hot, because we never actually listened to a bunch of dubstep,
Yeah, just
the only
kind of
dubstep
at the beginning there.
Yeah, the only kind of dubstep we're big listeners was just the deep stuff, like deep ambient stuff. Always been our jam.
Yeah, no, absolutely, man. And it's interesting. I mean, I feel like people are wanting to hear more of that. I feel like it's coming back around a little bit too.
I think it's always been there, but you got to look more for it because there's so much more music.
That's true.
But it's always been there. It's just more hard to find.
Well, sure. And I mean, obviously, like your career is proof. Like there's people want to hear it, But
Oh, I mean, there's deeper dubstep than us for sure.
sure.
Like there's still people still on that same vibe that Skream was on, or the early years of dubstep. Just look at what the label DDD are doing. Deep Dark and Dangerous, the Truth label. They're straight into that vibes since the early years of dubstep, and it's super cool what's being released
so cool,
in there,
man. That's one thing I really love is the people, take like a Truth or someone like that who just, define and hold a flag for whatever that sound is.
They're real. They're truth to themselves.
Yeah, absolutely, man.
Not being influenced by what is hot. It's
I mean, what part of do you think of yourselves as part of a scene or part of a sound at all? Is that something you even care about?
I don't care, no. I mean, I know we always placed into the dubstep word, and of course, mainly most of our track are dubstep, but it was important for us back then to be able to be put it on the stage and fit those different, dubstep names. But right now we have that comfort of not really care about fitting any stage, really. I think at this point right now, we're like, the more different, the better.
Yeah.
Really, like, we don't care.
I think that's exactly right. I mean, it's interesting thinking about like the early days to now. Do you think, has your production process changed? Like do you have a process? Like if you're going into the studio to write a song, is there like a usual way it takes shape?
Yeah, it always been starting with choosing the BPM, obviously, and trying to find the soul of the track. Like trying to find, it could be like, when I'm talking about soul, it could be like a sample that inspired me to make a certain chord progression, or it could be just starting with a lead, just a tiny melody, and then building the harmony around it. It's always been more harmony focused for me than beats and grooves of something. And then building the harmony around it. I mean, what talks to me the most is harmonies and emotions, really. That's the most important thing for me in music. That's why I'm talking about soul.
Right.
I get that emotional connection to it. Creating a soul of the track, and then everything flows.
Right.
Once the soul is good and solid, it's easy.
Yeah, it's funny how that works, right? It's sort of once you get the idea down in the heart of it, like it's really not about the specific sound you're picking at the start, or it's really not about, what is this drop or, any of that. Like
I really extremely rarely start with a drop.
Yeah.
Really rare.
Which is, I think that's the right way to do it,
I mean, I know an awesome producer that start with the drop and doesn't work chronologically on the track. I usually really start from finding the intro, the harmony, and building chronologically, writing the story,
Yeah. I mean, I shouldn't say that it's the right or the wrong way, but I think to me, the songs that affect me the most are the ones I think that are written in the way you're talking about.
Mm-hmm.
Where do you see it going for you at this point? Because, it's taken a long time to get to the point that you're at, but now that you're there, I mean, you're doing what, three nights in a row at Red Rocks and all these really big shows. Do you have a vision for where it goes after this?
More big shows, I guess. Yeah. I guess more big shows, more stories. At the end, it's not been a super long time that we're able to make those big show experience. So we were still a lot of things we want to do, and we didn't have the chance to.
Sure.
But we'll get there. It's really exciting to finally be able to, finally, like I had that dream. No, I never had big dreams like that. But once you achieve the biggest dream you have ahead and you realize that, oh gosh, there's stuff on top of this that I can't maybe reach. It's crazy, but yeah, it's challenging.
Yeah, it is. I mean, well, that's another question, right? Is, as like, so you're at this point where it's successful and it's going well and you're doing these big shows. Is it a feeling of relief or is it a feeling of more stress now that everything is bigger and the stakes are higher?
You definitely learn to handle different pressure, like the stress and the pressure, just to know that there's people relaying on what you're doing. That changed the whole game, like responsibilities and stuff like that have an impact. I'm trying not to think too much about it and to just trust my team and myself that we're doing the right thing. Trying to be consistent and just give the best you have and trying to handle the pressure because, gosh, it is stressful.
Yeah.
It is.
Yeah, no, 100%. And, trying to balance your time and all of that becomes more complicated. I mean, what's your relationship to the touring side of it? Is being on the road something you really enjoy? Are you a homebody? Where do you fall with that?
At the beginning, when we started touring in the US, I really loved it. I really loved because it was just, seeing so much. I mean, I never really thought in my life I would travel that much. And I never had those dreams to travel the world and see everything. It was not really my vibe, but I then started enjoying it for sure. Right. Especially the US, there's so many beautiful places everywhere. And I really enjoyed it a lot. And then that's when the too much traveling between Europe and the US started to really hit and started to get really exhausting.
Yeah.
Too much jet lag, nonstop. You don't know where you are. I remember waking up one day in Brussels, looking at 4 a.m., 3 a.m., looking at my wife sleeping next to me, and I was stressed. I couldn't recognize her.
Oh man.
Because I was so tired. I woke her up hey, who are you?
Oh, man.
And I was extremely stressed. You can imagine how tired I was.
Wow. Yeah.
That was how tired I was. After making 3 and 4 round trip between Brussels and the US in a month, your body's oh gosh, what's going on?
So you were going out there, you were coming out to the US every weekend and then flying home?
When my wife was pregnant, I didn't want it to miss a hospital appointment and that kind of stuff. So yeah. It really was brutal on myself during that period. And then I started to hate airport and traveling. But I knew there was a price to pay and I could feel myself getting really tired. And then we started touring with the tour bus and all that. It was a different experience. I really enjoyed being on the tour bus. It was so much more easy to travel and to play almost every day being in a tour bus, but still really exhausting. You don't sleep much.
Yeah.
It's hard to sleep when a bus is driving and it's kind of challenging.
Yeah, it took me a minute, but then once I adjusted, man, I kind of slept really well on the bus. It was
there's good sleeper.
Yeah.
People that can just switch off that on plane, on car. If I hear noise or anything, I wake up. It's terrible. It's a curse. It doesn't make travel easy for me. I'm having a hard time finding rest while traveling. It's super challenging. But I still like to travel, of course. And right now, I would love to be on a plane going somewhere. Trust me. But yeah, touring. I don't know yet. Honestly, maybe we'll do other tour. Maybe we'll focus more on big curated events, which I think is what I would prefer right now. Because there's so much thing you can accomplish while investing more time into big events like that. I love that. I don't know. I don't know where we're going really, but
no. I mean, that makes sense, man. I think those bigger events, especially, we're talking about, you've got the Mr. Wobble character and these visual components that you're trying to integrate more. And I think those big one-off events, that's where you can really present something to people in a sort of special way and really spend time building it out. Because if you're on tour, I mean, it has to be something you can tear down every night and put up again somewhere else the next day.
Yeah,
and so, you get, that puts limitations.
And you get the limitation sometime because of the club or the venue is not big enough. You got to adapt the stage or adapt the production to fit the stage.
Right.
Yeah, and so that's a problem you don't have when you make bigger events, or rarely, but you put more time and more focus on that. The stress you're seeing, the pressure of making bigger events like that, there's also big satisfaction and of being able to build a lineup with other artists we've been like supporting, enjoying the music for many years. And that's a reward for us, really, to being able to push those artists that are so talented into our curated events. That's extremely satisfying.
Yeah, man.
It feels like we're doing the right thing,
Yeah.
It feels like you're doing the right thing when you see like those guys are to have amazing careers now, and knowing that we've been a little bit responsible to help show them to the people. That's such a great feeling, man.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's one of the best things you can do is to that's something for the culture, right? That's not just something to enrich yourself. That enriches the whole community.
No.
Yeah.
Yes, that what feels good. You're doing the right thing for the people that love music.
Yeah, and, exactly.
Yeah,
and it's
so cool.
Great because I mean, obviously it's helping a smaller artist, which is always a great thing to do, but it's also, it's building the world you want to be in,
Yeah, and it's always a good feeling to see people appreciating the same music you do. Like it creates connection between people, and at the end, we need more of that.
I agree, man. I mean, it's so cool to me to just see how big you guys have been able to grow it. Like we talked about, more or less on your own. Doing it self-released, putting in all the years. Some lean years at the start to all the way where it is now. I think it's super inspirational because, it's I think a rare story that someone really puts in that much time and effort and gets it to this point.
It's a rare story for sure. And I'm still having a hard time sometimes to believe what happened to us, really.
I think that's a good place to be in, man. I think that's a place of gratitude and humility, I think, which, as shit gets bigger and more successful, that's like the best place to be in.
Yeah, and there's also, I mean, I don't want to only, the chance had a big impact. They're just statically, the stats just would tell us all that the chains have an impact into the success of anybody. So I'm grateful to have that chance too. I know there's many people that are way more talented than us and started working on music a long time ago, almost in the same time than us, and are not where we are right now for multiple reasons, and chance is a factor there too. And the biggest factor is that they quit.
Right.
Yeah. If you quit, you just erase all your chances of success. That's for sure. That's the first thing. But if you don't quit, well, every day you run the dice, and sometime you have a good one that leads you to a good road.
Absolutely. I mean, as we're kind of wrapping it up a little bit, I mean, were there ever those times for you guys where you considered, in the lean years especially, that, man, this is tough. We put in a lot of time. It's not where we want it yet. Did you think about taking it in a different direction?
Yeah, definitely. The year before we released Hybrid Distillery, so 2015, we're like, we put so much effort into that project for so many years. It's slow. We see things moving. It's moving the right way, but it's so slow. We don't know if we're going to be able to, maintain that energy to the into the project, and being able to build our life too. Like I just had met my wife 2 years before that, so 2013, and we had plans. We wanted to make a family, and I was bringing no money home at all. Like again, like back then, we were not getting any money from the project. Everything we ever made was reinjected into the project to Ganja White Night to make it grow, and it was so slow. And early 2016, started showing people, teasing some teaser video of the Mr. Wobble album, me working on the music, and it started to really go faster. And like I told you, my wife just got pregnant, and the project kind of exploded in the same time. I was like, gosh, I'm so glad we didn't give up,
right?
Because we were close to like starting investing time into other things and just to make a living.
Of course, man. Yeah, it's those moments are so interesting to me. I mean, was there something different about that Mr. Wobble release? Or was there something different about the way you guys were approaching it that you think made people react differently? Or was it just sort of a right time, right place kind of thing?
I got no idea, man. I wish I knew. I wish I knew, really.
Right.
But I don't know. Maybe like you're saying, it's been like the right kind of vibe at the right time. I think the Wobble Master track and Mr. Wobble and those tracks in that album really hit the US at the right time. It was refreshing, I think, back then, at least. And,
absolutely, yeah. And I think it's actually what you said earlier. It's the fact that you didn't quit. It's you kept showing up, right? And eventually the stars kind of aligned for it.
And I also remember when we released Hybrid Distillery, like I told you, there's only 3 or 4 dubstep tracks in that album. And back then, everybody was saying dubstep is dying. Dubstep is over. It's done. I don't remember who said that back then. Maybe it was Bass Nectar, I think. That said, dubstep is done. Well, no, he is done. But dubstep is done. And dubstep is more alive than...
Dubstep's doing just fine.
So wrong. In so many ways. Anyway, like, and now... Like, and back then I remember telling my team, like, I think that was, I'm not going to produce dubstep anymore. And I started working on Mr. Wobble, which is a 100% dubstep album.
Right.
And I don't know, like after spending time on making different vibes, it had a really refreshing impact to my inspiration back then, I guess. And I produced Mr. Wobble, and it was it went really right after that.
Yeah, it's interesting, man. I feel like probably you were going through the same kind of thought process that a lot of people who ended up listening to the album were going through in one way or another, maybe being tired of a certain thing or wanting something fresh. And it just coming along at that perfect time. It's a great story, man. Yeah,
Thank you.
No, absolutely, man. The other thing that makes you guys stand out a bit, and maybe also what makes touring a bit more stressful, is that, you perform live. And my understanding is it was kind of always that way, right? Like you didn't start off as DJs?
No, we learned to DJ after. It's always been a big goal for us to only play our music live. So it was obviously challenging at the beginning because we didn't have much music made.
Right.
But after, it's always been a thing. Like we never played other people's music. It's always been our music live. At the beginning, it was a ton of hardware and it was impossible to travel with. And we reviewed the setup multiple times and find like a good comfort, good balance between being able to play, to have a big impact with the music live, and being able to travel with it. So now we are we've been using the same kind of setup for a few years right now, and it's really enjoyable.
Yeah, man. And I think that's great too, because that's very true to yourselves. I feel like that's just another way that you stand out. Do you do DJ stuff at all now?
I love to DJ too, honestly, at this point right now. But I know it's not my main skills. I don't have like the technique that other DJs have. Like I don't play 4 decks. Like I'm an old school DJ guy, like 2 decks, and I don't go doubles and a lot of chop. This is not my thing. I'm putting more focus on the selection of what I want to play and making sweet transition and smooth transition. This is more what I kind of like to do. And I enjoy playing other people's music, because when I do, it's like I can have that, that feeling that some other of my friend have when they throw a huge banger there that is from someone else, or someone I don't even know, or whatever. Right. And it's a great feeling of you feel powerful.
Yeah, I mean, it's also, you're kind of like that kid going to the raves back in Belgium again, right?
Exactly. Yeah. No, I really like DJing, and I had a lot of fun. We went to our friend festival, Infrasound, in Minnesota. I mean, they had it in Wisconsin back then, but anyway, and we surprised people there by going in 2019 and make a drum and bass set there without telling anybody, and I had the best time. It's so much. I mean, I've always been a big fan of drum and bass, but as you know, we don't produce a lot of drum and bass. So being there mixing drum and bass was really satisfying. Like I felt, like you said, when I was a kid going to drum and bass rave and just raging. I was like that, just on the stage, just really enjoying it.
Man. I mean, that's the best thing, right? Is when you can put yourself back into that place of just being a kid and being a fan of something.
Mm-hmm. I was a big fan on the stage of what I was playing. I know it's not me producing, so I didn't have that pressure,
Right.
Like that pressure I put on my shoulders when we play a live set, really trying to push ourselves, as being as good as we can. And best time.
Yeah, that's great, man. I love those. And those are the ones you remember too, right?
Oh, yeah. I mean, yeah. If you're not too drunk, you remember it.
Well, that too, yeah. I've had plenty of those too, yeah. Well, this has been great, man. Is there anything that we didn't talk about? Anything else that's on your mind? Anything else you want to let people know before we get out of here?
Well, I can't wait to be in the crowd again. It's something I miss a lot. And I don't want to, end this on a negative note or just like saying, oh, I'm sad, not around people.
No.
But gosh, I want to be back on the stage. I want to be back in the crowd and having those experiences again, really. Having that connection. We always had a big connection with our fans. Since we started doing shows in the US, I always, at a show during the tour, I always go in the crowd and trying to catch the vibe there. And sometimes spend like almost all night with the crowd there, just having experience, talking, enjoying music together.
Yeah.
I miss that a lot. Like I miss feeling the sound in my chest. Really, that's something that raised me. And I understand I'm not the only one missing this right now. And
you're not, man. And you'll have it again soon. It's coming.
Some people had their little dose.
Some people got it already. Yeah. But I feel you, man. I miss those moments too. And it's like you were saying earlier, like the music we make is meant for a community. It's meant for people to come together in a space. And I think it's been missing that. So I'm really looking forward to that too.
Definitely, man.
But yeah, man, great talking to you. I will talk to you again soon. And have a good rest of your day.
Thank you, man. You too. Take care.
Right. Take care, man. Bye.
Bye.
All right. right, that's the show. Shout out to Ganja White Night. Man, great to talk to you. I really enjoyed that. For everybody out there listening, I hope you enjoyed that as much as I did. And don't forget, Ganja White Night, there's a lot going on. The Dark Wobble album is out right now. The first single, Trinity, they just dropped the new music video. And if you're in the United States, they announced 3 nights in a row at the legendary Red Rocks. That's coming later this fall, so grab your tickets. The link to do that and the link for all the new music, the video, everything, that's going to be in the description of this episode. My name is Willy Joy. You can follow me as well at Willy Joy or at BackToBackPod on all social media. BackToBackPod@gmail.com is the email address. And also in the show notes, you're going to find a link to the Back to Back Discord. Guys, come join the Discord. Come hang out with a great group of people. Come share your music, share your art, get some feedback on it if that's something you'd like to do. And I look forward to sharing inappropriate memes with you there very soon. Look, that's it for this week. I gotta run. I gotta go get an eye exam. Pretty exciting stuff going on over here, guys. But look, in a pandemic year where you can't do anything, all these little appointments, they pile up, and then you got to go take care of them every once in a while. So that's what I'm doing for the rest of my day. Whatever you're doing for the rest of your day, wherever you're at right now, you know, I don't know if you're listening in the car, at the gym, at home, at work, wherever. I'm sending you some positivity, some encouragement, whatever you're trying to get done, whatever you're worrying about, whatever you're anxious about. Look, I hope it lands the way you want it to land. I hope you accomplish whatever you're trying to accomplish. You can do it. You can accomplish it. One foot in front of the other, small steps to take a big step. Look, all that motivational coach stuff, it's corny, but it's true. Have some fun this week. Take care of yourself. Take care of the people around you, and I will talk to you next Tuesday. Love y'all. For Back to Back, this is Willy Joy. Peace.